Welcome, everyone, to our the Federal Way City Council study
Recording
session.
in progress.
So we have a study session that was requested by two council members, and we'll have a brief introduction by Councilmember Norton and Councilmember Asefa Dawson.
The flag?
It's not on the agenda, but we can do it. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. So, Councilmember Norton, you want to just some brief comments to start us off with?
Okay, so I'm going to be going over a proposed program that I've been working on with a consulting firm and some people who run recovery programs around the country. And Council Member Asefa Dawson was nice enough to help me get the study session. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm glad we could do this. For me, this issue is very important because a lot of people are suffering. It's not just the homeless population. As a matter of fact, homelessness is a housing issue, not necessarily an issue of addiction and mental health. However, we understand that a lot of people do suffer from addiction. So having this and understanding it better and seeing where Federal Way could go, because, we're centered on opportunity and how do we take advantage of opportunities and programs and services that are available to help the residents of Federal Way who are dealing with addiction and mental health and all the other issues that are very prevalent. So again, looking forward to listening to what you have to say, as well as what Erica's presenting, and moving us forward, because we've been talking a lot. So with that, I think I give it back to Erica. It's all yours, Erica.
And I would note that we've got an executive session, so we've got about 40 minutes. We'll need 30 minutes for the executive session, so we'll go to about 5:45. That'll give council a few minutes to prepare for the meeting at 6:30.
Erica says she's going to talk fast.
Okay.
I practice. I can do it in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Oh, shoot.
And we do have representatives here from AU Consulting and Zion Healing. Rubber Beatty is present via Zoom. And the representatives from AU Consulting are present in person, I believe.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read very quickly, so bear with me. And I sent everyone in the council this presentation so that you could look at it. So good evening, Mayor Farrell, Council President Kochmar, Deputy Mayor Honda, and esteemed council members. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity to present our proposal to help our neighbors choosing to live outside find full recovery. My participation in this venture is without any financial gain. It's purely altruistic. I'm the person who designed what I'm about to present, which is why I think it's best that I explain to you how it works. So we're asking for $100,000 from the Washington State Opiate Settlement for AU Consulting to conduct a feasibility study. We're also asking for your endorsement of our program. The subject of homeless substance users, HSU, is an issue that's on the forefront of the public eye. It's negatively impacting the health and security of our community. The intent of our program is to address this issue and reduce the amount of drug addicts living outside by helping them to become recovered, productive members of society. Harm reduction and housing first methods do not correspond with the goals of this proposed program. Harm reduction's stated goal is to prevent HIV and Hep C infection. Housing first stated goal is to simply house people. Subjects of harm reduction and housing first are given access to free needles, drug kits, and locations to consume drugs. Our program's mission is to enable people to permanently stop drug use, regain proper use of brain functionality, obtain living wage jobs, and find affordable housing. Full recovery is possible if given the proper tools. Historically, people seeking permanent sobriety are tasked with piecing together several options over long periods of time. These options are offered separately by different providers who do not work together and at times in opposition to one another. Mental, physical, neurological, behavioral, job, and housing acquisition. They're all needed to become whole again, but they've never been offered simultaneously in a streamlined fashion. So that's our goal, to find a way to put the pieces of the puzzle together under one umbrella. This will shorten the recovery pathway from years to months with integration of vital resources, creating a whole human being. The study goals are to connect with service providers in the area, streamline treatment components, obtain buy-in and cooperation from the providers, and finalize the process. Our program is divided into 4 phases: recruitment, detox, treatment, and jobs and housing placement. The feasibility study will gather the necessary information to create a seamless flow from one phase to the next. It will obtain strong commitments from local providers to work together to eradicate gaps or pauses in services. From what we know at this time, it's clear why it's been a struggle for people to navigate their way into healthy permanent recovery. Service providers are slow to respond to phone calls and emails. When a person decides they're ready to walk away from drugs, action can't wait for 2 weeks or even 2 hours. Immediate response is required from the provider so we can move as quickly as possible. These services are expensive. Enrolling for government aid is confusing and difficult. Finding housing is next to impossible for a person without a job or recent rental history. During this life transition, people need support, guidance, and cohesion between each phase of development. Being sure beds are available when in the process of recruiting patients, acquiring housing and transportation while in treatment, food, clothing, skills training, and living wage jobs. This crucial cohesion is what AU Consulting will provide with the cooperation of local service providers already in place in Federal Way and surrounding cities. We ask for funding to explore and solidify this process. We ask for your endorsement so we can acquire more reliable responsiveness from service providers. What we're doing is simply utilizing services that are already in place and available, but organizing them in a strategic manner so we can get the best results for each patient. With that in mind, the size of cohorts or classes will be limited to 8 to 10 people. This gives each patient the individualized care necessary to create a space for permanent recovery. Human beings are unique. There is no cookie-cutter answer to sobriety. Hence, each patient requires their own program. We have determined the way to reduce the drug-addicted homeless population in Federal Way most efficiently will be if we conduct 4 cohorts simultaneously. If we run 2 clinics with 2 shifts of classes at the same time, we will see a marked difference in drug-addicted homelessness within 2 years of commencement. As you will see, these phases overlap one another and call for extensive planning and cooperation from the providers and our staff. Phase 1 is recruitment. Prior to recruitment, local partner detox facilities will be notified of our upcoming enrollment period. We will have agreements with these facilities to hold beds for up to 48 hours for our patients. RA International will have 16 detox beds in Federal Way, but we can't expect them to hold 10 beds for 48 hours. We will be seeking several locations within a reasonable distance in order to be sure space is available for our patients. Peer navigators, all of whom are drug addicts in recovery with experience recruiting people from camps into treatment, will be the principal contact for each person enrolled in the program. The peer navigator will be the first person the drug addict meets and the continuous support with daily contact and counseling until the patient graduates. Each peer navigator will be assigned 3 to 4 patients and will be committed to consistent support for each recruit. They will spend a minimum of 1.5 hours each day with their assigned patients. We interviewed several local recruiters for rehab facilities who currently enter encampments and recruit drug addicts. They revealed the average time they spend recruiting individuals is 0 to 48 hours. Enrollment includes registration with Medicaid, background personal history information, and a needs assessment. Most patients will be able to access immediate entry to Medicaid. Their belongings will be placed in a storage facility. We expect detox, which is phase 2, to be 14 days. Each patient will be medically examined and health issues will be addressed. During detox, we will obtain temporary supportive housing for their patients, place their belongings in their rooms, and prepare the spaces for them to live for the next 12 weeks. Phase 3 is treatment, which consists of neurological regeneration, brain mapping, and conventional rehabilitation services. Individualized counseling sessions, hypnotherapy, peer navigator interface, group sessions, and 12-step training. These approaches to treatment have been utilized separately for generations, but they are essential to permanent, healthy sobriety. Neurological regeneration has been the stumbling block and the chief component to relapse, due to the length of time it takes for the brain to regenerate neural pathways on its own, estimated at 2 to 5 years. The modality proposed in this program can complete this process in 12 weeks. This is FDA approved and Medicaid will pay for the treatment. Brain mapping is conducted throughout treatment to ascertain areas of the brain that may need attention to regain healthy normal function. Individualized counseling and hypnotherapy, group counseling sessions, and 12-step training are essential to recovery. Most people in recovery are only able to pursue these one at a time. We will provide these tools together at the same time. Our peer navigators will provide an anchor for our patients. They will be the guides, the dedicated sponsors to the patients. They will be the glue that holds this program together for the patients. The person who pulled them off the streets will remain steadfast at their side for the duration of the program. We believe this is the final key to helping our patients remain in the program to completion. The peer navigators are the experts because they've already been there. Job training and affordable housing placement will begin. We will seek out the patients' families to reunite them with their loved ones, as most people seeking sobriety list this as their top priority. Weeks 8 through 12 will involve phase 4 job training and permanent housing placement. Each patient will be given an opportunity to become an apprentice in a trade. We will pay for enrollment and training. We will work with local unions and non-union organizations to train and place each patient into living wage jobs. The trades are an excellent opportunity to regain the necessary financial footing required to support a person. I know this from personal experience. My drug and alcohol use blacklisted me from academia, which was my chosen profession. When I got sober, the only job I could find was housekeeping. And I eventually moved into construction cleaning and started my own business, finding financial stability as a result. I believe the trades will help our members find financial freedom for themselves. Permanent supportive housing will be sought by our team from the date of enrollment, as this is the most difficult step in our process. We will seek assistance from King County Housing Authority, the Homeless Housing Authority, Veterans Administration, and local nonprofits like Multi-Service Center and Catholic Community Services to place our members into permanent affordable housing. We are positive these organizations will assist us with our endeavor to bring our patients into safe, affordable housing. So what's next for the participants? Upon completion of treatment, patients will remain actively enrolled until they are working and in permanent housing. Mental health treatment and behavioral modification training will continue until no longer needed by the member. Peer navigation will be reduced. They will be weaned off at their own pace. Reunite with their family and or support structure. Monthly follow-ups with the team will be conducted up to 1 year so that we can obtain proper information for the study. And our measures of success are each step of the program. As they go to the next step, each phase is a measure of success. As a patient moves from one phase to the next, they will reach new levels of development. The final measure of success will be 1 year of sober living and working, being a productive member of society. So what's in it for you? What's in it for the city? We're going to reduce crime by getting people off the streets, and they'll be supporting themselves instead of stealing to do it. We'll reduce police and EMS and business costs of engagement with the HSUs. We'll increase our tax base as a result of reduced crime and cost to the city and businesses. We will supply local businesses with skilled tradespeople. We'll increase the morale of our constituents in the city, and we'll give hope to our community and our HSUs. That's it.
All right, thank you, Erica. Before Councilmember Norton steps down or moves back onto the dais, do we have any questions for the Councilmember? All right, and Councilmember Norton, who do you think best to proceed first? I know the folks from AU are here.
Probably Mr., I don't know, because Abby said that she, unless you want to hear her financial information again, I don't know if that's necessary. But Mr. Beatty is waiting to speak via Zoom, so
Very good.
perhaps him.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that sounds good. Thank you very much. All right, so, and we've got Mr. Beatty all the way from Utah with the advent of the miracle of technology. We're on Zoom, and I met with Mr. Beatty and Councilmember Norton earlier today before the meeting. Mr. Beatty, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Would you like to introduce yourself to the council and just kick it right off? You've got the ball.
You bet. My name's Robert Beatty. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zion Healing Centers. We are from St. George, Utah. We have a clinical model that has been developed over a period of 11 to 12 years, a successful clinical model of treating addiction and mental illness in a clinical setting rather than an inpatient setting. We utilize TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, which utilizes an MRI strength magnetic pulse to stimulate an area of the brain called the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex of the brain that regulates mood and depression and anxiety and OCD and a number of different issues within the brain and the body. We use neural feedback and we do brain mapping where we can see the areas of the brain that are non-functioning or under-functioning, and we treat that using neural feedback to a point where those areas, upon remapping, prove to be functioning correctly. And the technology and our group have a very high success rate in our treatment modalities. Most of the people that we treat, I shouldn't say most of the people, everyone that we treat at a Zion Healing Clinic anywhere in the nation is treated with the same exact protocols. It starts with extensive assessment, individualized treatment planning, and then the utilization of individual sessions, educational sessions, group sessions, intensive education on mental illness, intensive education on substance abuse, the history of it, why they have it, genetically, what they're suffering from. I mean, in a nutshell, we tell people the truth, if that makes any sense. Most of the people that suffer from mental illness and substance abuse are just as misinformed about the disease that they suffer from as the general public is. And we take it upon ourselves to be a voice of education for that purpose. So we build strong case management support systems to assist these individuals in understanding first who they are, what they're suffering from, how we're going to treat it, and how it's going to help them become self-sufficient after care. And then we have an extensive aftercare program that follows each individual for a period of anywhere from 1 to a lifetime, 1 year to 5 years, or even a lifetime. In my opinion, I believe that having a strong treatment plan for each individual that's individualized, so it's not one treatment fits all, it's a treatment plan that fits each individual individually, and then it follows them every step of the way from the homeless population. I believe that this is needed in order to support this group of people back from, to transition them from being homeless, addicted, mentally ill, to a number of them, hopefully a large number of them being supportive members of your community. An endorsement from your city gives a stronghold to people like me. I would be amiss to tell if I told you any differently, I would be incorrect. Our motivation in being involved in this, we have about 60 clinics nationwide that are licensed in development, is to help an organization like you to develop a model of treatment for this class of people that works in the manner that we work within in our treatment model. Everything from policies and procedures to treatment planning, operations manuals to state licensing, even the billing and collection, we do all of that. The rest of the operation, once we get past the basic needs of everything that Erica has outlined, is for us something that we do every day. We grant licenses for treatment clinics under our model to licensed professionals, MDs, psychiatrists, mental health professionals all over the country. We do policies and procedures. We formulate those that meet state code, state requirements of the code in each state. We provide the training and the management, the insurance billing, the collection, the accreditation, and the state licensing. We would welcome the opportunity to be involved with your program in federal way. We would welcome that. We would be a willful participant in that. We don't want money for that. It's something that we do, and it's something that is extremely needed in the U.S., not only in your city, but in some of the larger cities in the U.S. And so these, developing a pilot program like this is very important to us. And we have the support of our partners at NeuroStar, at BrainMaster, the equipment manufacturers, to come in and help you develop this clinic if you'll give us that opportunity. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Robert. Any questions? All right, Councilmember Dovey first, then Council President. Sorry, I saw you. So we'll do.
My one question about what you just explained. When people get into your program now, it looks like you've got locations all over. Do people, how do people drop out after they start, or what's the take rate when we finally get someone to the program or into a program that they actually finish it?
That's a great question. I would say that I would be lying to you to say that no one's ever quit the
Yeah,
program.
well,
But I can tell you that if I was to put a percentage to it, just in knowing our numbers that we've treated over the last 11 years, I could name on a handful, for instance, a clinic in St. George, Utah, in a population of 100,000 that's been operating. That clinic's been operating for 8 years in that community. I could name on a handful the people that have quit that program without finishing it. And that's out of hundreds of people. If you put somebody in an outpatient treatment program, and all you're doing is putting them in a group room, expecting them to get well, that's not going to happen.
right.
If you deploy services like individual treatment plan that fits their specific needs, and then you deploy technology that they start to understand, that wakes up areas of the brain that have been dormant and non-functioning for long periods of time, or worse, damaged, and they become functional, these people feel good. They're not going to quit our program. They start to feel good in a very short period of time because of that technology. I hope that answers your question.
Can I, one follow-up
Of course.
question?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the programs you have now, people realize they have issues and they opt in to get the treatment. That's probably I'm guessing how you do business now. And we're talking about a group of people that may not want help or eventually want to do it. How do you make that transition from people that self-nominate with your program now with maybe people that aren't 100% sold that they need help?
That's another great question. I believe, Councilman, that it is screening and vetting for readiness and appropriateness of treatment of the individual. That's all. Referrals from sources such as VOA, vocational ed, but mostly talking to these individuals with a good assessment plan in front of you that asks the right questions for screening and vetting for readiness and appropriateness, more importantly, of this individual. Not everybody, treatment is not appropriate for everybody. That has to be vetted out very carefully of the individuals. So if you take a population of 10 people and you enter them into a program, there's a large portion of that 10 people in that population that are not going to be ready, or treatment may not be appropriate for their needs. And so, we have to look at those things on an individual case by case, with a caseworker that is going through that screening. It's a process, but it's not that far off of or unlike what we do every day anyway. I mean, people that come to us are, a lot of them, not really understanding. They understand they've got a problem. To get there, they've figured that out, but they don't really understand, because they haven't gone through the vetting process, if they're really ready or if what we offer is appropriate for them.
Thank you.
Council President?
Thank you. Thank you, Erica, for your presentation. I appreciate that. It was very informative. And Mr. Beatty, I'm trying to visualize, so after a 10-day detox program, which I assume would be in-house, then they would go to your clinic. Is that how it works?
We would actually install one of our clinics inside of your housing unit. And it would need a very small space to do that. So the clinic itself would be inside of that same facility. Does that answer your question?
Well, actually, I'm trying to, because we don't have a facility, I'm trying to understand, who would build the facility, or are you expecting that we would do that for a building, construct a building?
I'm going to try to get King County to let us use one of the hotels that they purchased, or see if we could apply, or if Zion Healing could apply. It's just, and that's why we're asking for money for a feasibility study, so that we can parse these out and figure out where we're gonna put it. And
Okay.
that's the whole point of asking for the money, is
Gotcha.
to figure this out.
Okay, and then one last question is, you were talking about, so whether it be voluntary or would the involuntary be court-ordered?
No. This is all voluntary.
Voluntary.
That's what the recruitment process is, the vetting. So we would have people who are already in the camps, who are already trusted, and I already have those people on board, ready to start work anytime they're asked to, and they're already recruiting people from the camps to go to different rehab facilities. We would just hire them to come to our facility instead.
So the money, so the other question then being, once you're through the study process, the other question being the ongoing process, the ongoing operations,
Yeah.
that would be something we would discuss after your feasibility study.
We already have a grant writer who's ready to get going. So the grant writing would start as soon as you guys say, go for it. We'll get the grant writing started, and Mr. Beatty is willing to give us free technology, free equipment, and design the whole program.
Okay. And then one last question on your TMS, magnetic stimulation.
Yes.
Is that permitted in this state? Is that,
You betcha. Transcranial magnetic stimulation's been around for a long time. It's been FDA approved and in circulation in the U.S. market for 9 years now. It has 43 patents on it, but more importantly, it has FDA approvals on major depressive disorder, anxiety and depression, anxiety and OCD, ADD and OCD. There are 5 other indications in front of the FDA currently, as we speak, in front of the FDA for approval. A couple of those are trauma, PTSD, substance abuse is also one of them. But it is very well known. It's nothing new to medical, the medical field.
thank you.
All right. Councilmember Walsh?
Mr. Beatty, I was taking a look at the Zion Healing website, and it talks a lot about how successful the treatment is for depression and anxiety. However, how much experience is there specifically with addiction, with substance abuse? And specifically with substance abuse, what type of, how many patients have you had, and what type of successes have been specifically with substance abuse?
Well, the FDA approval, as we speak, is for TMS therapy in the United States is depression with anxiety, and OCD. So we're not able to bill outside of that, bill insurance outside of that for anything but those three symptoms, those 3 issues. TMS is utilized in our setting in substance abuse because of its success. Every person who suffers from alcoholism or drug addiction and mental illness as a disease also have a co-occurring issue. The co-occurring issue is prevalent in all of them of depression and anxiety. And so by treating both of those modalities within our clinical model, we're getting it all. We treat substance abuse through the use of individual treatment planning, group education, psychoeducation, individual sessions, individual hypnotherapy. We deploy TMS and neurofeedback as a technology to further what we're doing on those with those issues with substance abuse. It is different than any other treatment center that you'll find in the U.S. We have yet to find anybody in the United States other than our organization that is deploying all modalities at once of substance abuse and in addiction and mental illness and depression and anxiety and these other things all at once. That just doesn't exist. But it's kind of, I don't know, it's like, do you want to mess around with this or do we want to get down to it, is what I tell my students. And I never do Listen, I've treated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, and I've never called one of them a patient. I believe it puts a label on them that there's something wrong with them. And what they suffer from clearly is a disease, and they need to be educated to that fact, that there is nothing wrong with them other than they're suffering from a disease that's very, very treatable. And we need to educate the people that are also administering that, which we do. So high degree of success, high degree of success.
If I
That's-
could,
yeah,
can
go
I ask
ahead.
one more question? And maybe Erica, you need to answer this, or maybe Mr. Beatty. When someone starts the program, how long is the process? How many weeks? How many?
12 weeks.
12 weeks, so you can actually cycle 5 people through one slot a year? I mean, is it a 12-week gestation period from start to finish, and then you have to give ongoing services to support the people, but then
Yes.
somebody new could start in, is that?
Yeah, and what AU Consulting did is they crunched numbers and they figured out, in order for us to address our problem here in Federal Way and to start reducing the number of homeless population, and also keeping in mind that we'll be getting close to 200 more people sent to us from Seattle very shortly. In order for us to address that and make a dent in it, that we would have to have 4 cohorts going at the same time. So that would be 2 clinics with 2 shifts. So we'd need to have 40 people, or, you know, between 35 to 40 people being treated, hopefully around the same time, and transitioning new people through at that rate. And I know it's but we're only gonna start with 1 group.
Right. The reason I asked the question, I mean, we focus a tremendous amount of effort, time, money on homeless.
Yeah.
But what I just heard being explained is not just a homeless problem. It is a problem that many citizens in our community have that.
Right.
That could come to a
And this
point
is-
and manifest themselves, so they
Right.
could become homeless. So,
This is triage. So when you're talking about triage, we need to cauterize the open bleeding wound first. And so that's what I'm trying to address, is what's causing the biggest issues, what's affecting crime, what's affecting our city, the way it looks, the safety of our citizens. And then after that, this could be utilized to help. I've already started on the next step, which I haven't talked to you about, but helping teens who are having issues and getting into trouble, and helping their families, because those are the people who are, you know, we need to create a safety net. But right now, first we need to help the people who are suffering the most, and it's what triage does, is if you have somebody in front of you who is dying, you're gonna help them first, and then you're gonna go on to the next person who needs
or you're gonna help on the battlefield, the one who's gonna live.
You got
Go
that
ahead,
point, and I get
triage,
you.
yeah.
But right now, what I'm doing is trying to address this issue, which is on the forefront of everyone's minds. And once we get through that, if this is successful, this could help a lot of people who aren't doing drugs and
Erica,
homeless. It
you
could
don't
help
have-
other
You
people.
don't have to sell me, I'm already in the
Oh, no,
court.
I'm just
I've
saying, my brain's already gone there. I've already gone way past this.
Councilmember Walsh and then the Deputy Mayor. Oh, okay. Oh, Councilmember Tran?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the information. I do have a couple of questions. Number one, if somebody willing to sign up for this program, what is the cost from start to finish the program?
That's why we're asking for a feasibility study. So
Okay.
we can get that information.
Okay, thank you. How is this program different from the recovery center run by King County, for example, or the local providers here?
Because it does not tell people relapse is a part of recovery, and it's not, this is incorporating so many methods of recovery into one umbrella. So, for example, for me to get to a place where I was feeling good about myself, it took me about 7 years, and I did 12-step. I did behavioral modification counseling. I went to PTSD counseling. I had to pay for all of this on my own, except for the 12-step I didn't pay for. I had to do hypnotherapy. And I mean, this took me a long time, but I did it all on my own. And what this is doing is putting all of that together in one place, and it's adding the neural regeneration. And that's what takes so long is, so when you use drugs and you drink, your brain loses the ability to make those neural connections. And then your brain takes time to grow those back. So I didn't feel good for 2 years, and I had to hang on for 2 years before I started feeling pleasure again. And so what this does is it regrows those neural pathways in 12 weeks. And this is a scientifically, so that's what's different, is it's all of these on top of the neural pathway regeneration. It's all of those in one umbrella, bang them with it, and then also offering jobs and housing stability. And that's another huge problem when you're coming out of recovery. So for example, I went from working in a collegiate environment and going around and I was being published and working in colleges to housekeeping at $12 an hour. That's really hard to support your child on that. And so I was living in a low income, and I had Section 8, but I'm just saying that when you're fresh in recovery, those are things that are hard. So that is another thing that's going to be different, is we will be helping them obtain housing and a good paying job.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Okay, thank you, Erica, Councilmember Norton, and Mr. Beatty, who I think is left.
Did you leave?
He's not. Oh, he's there, okay. So my question is, Mr. Beatty, thank you for being here, I appreciate it. When I was researching TMS, and we have 2 facilities here in Federal Way that offer this treatment already for depression. It was, some of the literature said that sometimes you need to redo the therapy within a year. Have you found that to be something with people suffering from addiction?
Most of the time, it's with if the primary issue is substance abuse and the co-occurring issue is depression, then no. If it's the other way around and the primary issue is major depressive disorder to begin with, and the self-medication for that has led to substance abuse, then the answer is usually yes. After they finish the program, there is some period of time that they go through, usually about 6 months after, and they hit this, what we call this dip. And it's a little dip, and it's a reset, and usually they come back in for 2 or 3 or 4 treatments, and we get them on their way, and they go about their way. We don't have a lot of it because of the extensive aftercare program that the Zion community alumni enjoy. Every person's graduating from our clinics becomes a part of a family organization of Zion alumni, and the Zion alumni have an aftercare program. It's an online app. It's a community of podcasts and educational materials and constant bombardment of recovery tools that keep them engaged in their own recovery every single day. And so, no, we don't get a lot of it.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other questions before I turn it over to Brian? Brian, would you, okay, go ahead. Brian Davis, our city administrator for the staff report. Wanted to make sure that we had some parameters for the council to consider as we take a look at this issue.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So this is a service that we've not dealt with before, and so the next step appropriately has been discussed is to determine the feasibility for the city to take it on. Which is a service that we would then purchase. And so the process for acquiring those services would be, depending on the amount that we're talking about, but if it's above 20,000, which it appears like this would be, then we would put it out to bid in an RFP process to various providers who can submit their individual qualifications, their company's work history, and their estimated cost to provide the feasibility study, and then on that basis inform the council with the results on what some of your questions that were asked here today would be answered in that study as to the startup and ongoing costs to the entity that does this, whether it's the city or some other entity, and other capital and facility costs as well. So that's, if you want to move forward, the next step for us would be for you to determine the money that you want to dedicate to this, and then put it out to bid for service providers to then submit to the city. Identifying the money gets us a range. Obviously, in the bidding process, it would come in either higher or lower than we estimate, but at least we should set some money aside so that we can move forward with that.
All right, any questions, council, of Brian?
So
Councilmember
how,
Norton?
if the council was to agree to do this, how would we move forward with assigning this? Is this something that would be at the next Parks and Recreation meeting, that it would be there? Or would it be something that we, how do we take action?
So we would come to you with approval to go out for an RFP, and then we would submit that, we would advertise it like we normally do with most bidding processes.
So does that mean someone makes a motion right now to do it? Or it wouldn't be now? It would be put on at a council meeting? Or that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Well,
So, this is a special meeting and we're not scheduled to vote today, but we could poll council members on where they are at on this issue. Otherwise, it would get put on an agenda through the normal agenda setting process. Either a committee or the agenda setting committee would put it on.
Deputy Mayor?
So I need to be clear what the RFP would be requesting. And I'm, because what it sounds like is that the consulting group is going to try to find where the housing would be and the treatment providers. So I don't even know how that RFP would be written. I'm not sure exactly all we would ask for in the RFP.
Yeah, we would need your help as well in defining what we're asking for.
I think it would be finding the costs of the program and how we're gonna put it together and who we would talk to. And I mean, it's a lot. I know it's asking a lot. I know it is, but we need to do it.
I'm just trying to figure out what the RFP would ask for someone to respond to it.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to figure out in my mind.
Yeah, it's a good question in regard to what that would look like. Councilmember Walsh, and then the deputy,
Yeah.
then the council.
And so with that, I mean, basically what AU Consulting was talking about is doing a feasibility study. Would the RFP be for the feasibility study then?
Yes.
Okay, so the RFP would be for the feasibility study itself, okay?
Council President?
I would just like to know when we would know what the opioid settlement money would be. The amount.
Turn to the attorney.
Well, so that's kind of an ongoing thing. So we've settled we haven't settled, the state settled one case that had 3 defendants, and this year we got $56,000 that's in an account already, so we've already got that money. That said, there are other cases against, I believe, 5 other defendants that are slated to settle soon. And I'm not sure exactly how much money that settlement, my impression so far, there's a call next week to kind of talk about it more with the Attorney General's office, but my understanding is going to be similar numbers. So we probably are going to have, for a period of between 7 and 10 years, about $100,000 a year from the opioid settlements.
Yeah, my only question is, if we're going to do an RFP with anybody, we would want to know, the amount of the services and estimate what that would be, and then see if we had the money available to pay for that. So that's why it would be important to me.
Yes, and I can't foresee any circumstance in which we'll be able to fully fund what we're talking about here with housing and a facility by ourselves with that money. We'd need some other source of funding.
And that's part of the feasibility study, is bringing grant writers on board to find federal funding and state funding for it, so that it wouldn't be coming out of the city budget, because it's there, the funding's there. There's so much funding available right now. We need to move quickly.
Councilmember Dovey?
The comment that I have is, first of all, I want to commend Erica and Lydia for bringing this forward and kind of putting a skeleton together that we have to put a bunch of muscle on and bones and, make it something real. I'm not opposed to an RFP, but I think that we need to put a little bit more meat on this and what it looks like before we go out to an RFP. I think this is a great idea, and it's out of the box thinking, and that's what we have to do. But I think we need a little bit more meat on what we're going to do and what we're going to ask for. And that might be collectively the council in another study session where we get a little bit more educated of how all these functions are going to come together. Because in my brain, this is not a $100,000 decision. This is a $10 million decision. I mean, if we're going to do it right, you got to have facilities, you got to have the right people. The program that we just heard about sounds good to me, but I don't know enough about it. But I'd like to see the bigger picture before we spend the $100,000, because we're really talking about spending many millions, which I'm not opposed to. I think it makes sense because we got to do something for the problem.
Well, and that'll need to be the last word, because we are, thank you very much, Councilmember. We're at 5:48 right now. We've got an executive session for property acquisition pursuant to RCW 42-30110-1B, and pending potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42-30110-1I. Will be in executive session for approximately 30 minutes for those purposes. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you.